And then finally, on to our last session of the day. The day has gone very, very quickly. So now we're going to talk about a really important issue from a cybersecurity point of view: stress and burnout in the SOC. Security operations center staff workloads have increased during the pandemic, driven by a higher volume of attacks, more sensitive event detection, and higher executive awareness. What can you do to tackle stress and burnout and promote a healthy and effective working culture? So here with me to talk about this are Robert Dishavi, who is head of cybersecurity at the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, well, at least for the time being anyway. Haran Kumar, who is senior security architect at Elastic, and you know, we'll look forward to hearing from you two, and also from Lisa Ventura, who is a founder of the cybersecurity Unity. So, Lisa, I know one of the things when we talked about this session beforehand, you had some really interesting statistics you mentioned about the state of mental health in cybersecurity, and you talked about a report that you'd come across. Do you want to just cite some of those statistics just to give us an idea of the scale of the issue? You may be on mute.
Sorry, it's always one, isn't there? Apologies.
It's usually me.
Absolutely. And some new stats came out just yesterday, according to a new study from Expal, which stated that over half of those polled, 52% of UK IT decision makers, expect security team members to leave within the year due to burnout. And the alert fatigue is getting a lot worse, with over half of the respondents to this new report stating that it impacts them and their teams, and that it typically occurs as well within security operations SecOps teams. So very pertinent to what we're talking about now. And as a result, 93% of those that were polled said that they'd regularly missed personal appointments and commitments because of their jobs. And a third said that this happens most or all of the time. So it is a significant challenge for cybersecurity teams. And it really does show that the pressure is ramping up on SecOps and security teams. And half of the respondents to this new survey highlighted it as such, behind only energy prices and also the current economic climate. Just talking about mental health in general, 51% of people in another survey that they were polled are taking medication for some sort of mental health thing, or to help with their mental health. And around 58% are also talking to a counsellor or a therapist. So it is a huge problem. And I really think that all organisations, if they don't already, should consider having a qualified mental health first aider. I think it's just as important as having a physical first aider, which we have to have, you know, on site. So many people by law. But I really believe that a mental health first aider who can act as, you know, they can't solve the problems, but they can act as that kind of almost sort of first line of defense, and somebody that, you know, people can go to, you know, just to talk, just to have that confidential, you know, off the record chat. And, you know, the role of a mental health first aider can then be to signpost them to other relevant bodies or organisations, or even via, you know, a good wellbeing employee programme that I think organisations should have as well. So it really does show, and these new stats that literally just came out yesterday really do show the impact of the problem. It's huge.
I'd be interested to know how many organisations actually have mental health first aiders as well as physical first aiders. I suspect, you know, there are a limited number of organisations that would have that. They may have more from a cybersecurity point of view because they will be aware of the risk of sort of burnout, but I would have thought there's probably fewer organisations that will have that at the moment anyway.
Absolutely. And a key piece of work I'm doing through Cybersecurity Unity is around that and promoting the benefits of having mental health first aiders and good and robust employee assistance and well-being programs, providing, we talked in the call yesterday, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but, having those apps like Headspace and things like that available to staff as well. So, there's lots that we can do, and I know that Ran and will have some, and Robert will have some insights on that. I'm also looking at doing a survey of my own through Cybersecurity on that very point, David, around surveying cybersecurity is to find out if they have a mental health first aider, and if not, is it just that they're not aware, or is it cost? And really, raising that awareness around it's so critical.
If you have an organisation that says it recognises mental health as a concern, then the idea of actually having a mental health first aider isn't that far a step. Although presumably you'd have to implement it,
Yeah.
Haram, one of the things that you were telling me about was the steps that organisations take to combat stress and burnout, and you talked about what you described as as shut it down days. Do you just want to talk about the evolution of that and how that works, please?
Yeah, definitely. So I totally agree with Lisa, and I have seen when I interact with customers, especially the security team, the core SOC teams, who has their 24/7 operations, high burnout due to their the way they work or the load they get, right? Organizations in general, everybody in the organization across different domains and sectors are definitely feeling stressed out, where they couldn't have proper family time, they couldn't have proper appointments for their personal health or personal things, right? So that's how we as an organization in Elastic, we came up with a concept called Shut It Down Day during COVID times, right? So this Shut It Down days is apart from your regular yearly time offs. So this is specifically for during the COVID times, but we also made sure we saw a very positive impact due to this, because of the shut it down day, increase in productivity, increase in people's culture, increase in people's wellness, right? So that's how we have been still continuing this even post pandemic. And what this shut it down day means is, like, we have 2 days in a month, or at least 1 day in a month for certain organization where they have 24/7 operations. That is supposed to be on a Friday, right? So either one Friday or 2 Fridays in a month will be a complete shut it down day. And this means that you have a lot of time for your personal appointments, personal wellness, extra time with your family and other things. And also, along with Study Down Day, we came up with a lot of employment wellness program, like virtual yogas, other things, right? So now things have moved into virtual. So maintaining your employee wellness program, even for a distributed organization, is much more easier. Even consulting firms like wellness consulting firms for IT organizations are coming up with a lot of virtual ideas to make sure that employment wellness program are conducted even for the distributed organizations where people are completely having remote works and remote places.
So how does it work in terms of logistics? People have sort of time with their family. So effectively, it's a day off. Is it? It's an extra.
Yeah,
vacation
it's
day,
extra
really.
Day off in your, extra day off in your from HR's point of view, but to make sure that customers are not impacted, there is business continuity and other operations going on. We do have certain teams that is front end facing or customer facing. 24/7 operations team will definitely not be completely off during the shutdown days, but they will make sure that they get their comp offs back or valid time back in a rotational basis, right? So in that way, we make sure that every employee is impacted or positively impacted with this wellness program, and also the business continuity goes on, and the customer is also not impacted.
Robert, from what you've heard, do you think this is a good idea? Is it something you could see other organisations adopting at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's assessing the problem and obviously doing something for the problem, but we can't go too far into this, standing things down. I get the compass of it, and I sort of get the reasons why, but I can see more influence by using machine learning, and by using sort of the likes of SOARs and artificial intelligence. And that's not to say that we're going to move away from using cyber analysts. That's just saying that it would be one of our tools. I mean, I suppose you heard the conversation before about artificial intelligence, and it's quite obvious that some of this is sort of premature. The understanding of artificial intelligence as it stands right now, this and driven more by budgetary requirements. So people saying, we can do this type of sort of stuff, but actually we're not quite close to that just yet. My concern would be of thinking artificial intelligence can replace cyber analysts. And I'll tell you why. So following the conversation that we had the other day, I actually took quite a long look at this. And the understanding of sort of limited scope that artificial intelligence has, or machine learning at the moment, means it's effective at detecting certain things like false positives, but understanding context and understanding the reasons why those signals look the way they are is impossible for artificial intelligence at the moment. I mean, they have a lack of ability to understand the context of any situation. I mean, never mind whether that looks like somebody who should be in the network or whether it doesn't. And it's about that critical thinking that sort of cybersecurity analysts bring in. There's also the ethical considerations, which is absolutely a requirement. I mean, when we're looking at what type of data it is, does it look like sensitive data? And you'd think that artificial intelligence will be able to process that better than humans, but actually, if you're not getting the context of your systems, then you're not understanding those ethical dilemmas also. And then it's the adversarial nature of the attacker. So they're moving, they're pivoting, they're continuously changing their tactics. And artificial intelligence at this moment in time will not keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are.
You said it might be 10 years before we could reasonably, effectively deploy AI. Is that right?
So taking a look at it, I mean, so it's actually difficult to predict. I mean, sort of automation AI. Sorry. Artificial intelligence and AI is moving forward quite speedily, but for the moment in time, I can't see it getting there. So, like when I said 10 years, I was thinking more about there is some systems in place which could be beneficial to assess certain attack vectors within 10 years. But again, it's about understanding the context. So I can see for a long time there being analysts and machines working quite closely together in order to do this, which obviously suggests that we need to do something else because our cyber operations teams are the end line. That's the forward edge of the battle area, so to speak. They are our last resistance from a point of view of being attacked, and obviously then leads into the forensics part. So we need to find a way how to protect those. And I think it's as something as Nigel was putting forward before about building systems from the beginning with security in mind, and those concepts, those abstract concepts driven by NCC. Talking about secure by design and zero trust. And I think it's that which is going to slow down the attacker's vision and the attacker's ability to move forward into systems. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think as we were talking the other day, it too often, and we've probably all seen this, is where 4 to 6 weeks away from a project, security is finally brought on board, and then has to work miracles to try and provide some sort of security wraparound, something that they should have been told, weeks or months ago, and I guess Robert, Aaron, Lisa, you've probably all come across examples like that, have you?
So I know, sort of from my point of view, I mean, we've got an operations center guy on the call, Haran, and for me, as I'm planning that security architecture sort of point of view, moving that forward, the operations center should actually be given the TTBs, the run books, the playbooks, before that kit is deployed. So it's not just a case of coming to me in 4 weeks and saying, look, we're about to sign this off. Are you happy with it? Happy with what exactly? I mean, how's the network configured? What are we using as access controls? Have we looked at the applications? How have the applications been configured? Is that good? What am I going to be doing to identify threats as they sort of move through? Do we have a run book already in existence which can be manufactured to that? That is the longest time, because that has to be tuned. It has to be tested. It has to be tuned, and it should be done pretty much at the beginning. I mean, not everything be done at the beginning, but let's get the good stuff, the shift left stuff out of the way, the important stuff about security architectural design, about the principles of how security is going to be built in, and then we can talk about run books and playbooks as we move through. It could be that we need a new piece of kit. How are you going to get a piece of kit in 4 weeks? How are you going to bring something in which is going to, analyze, for instance, containerization, using a brand new containerization system? And everybody knows we're having problems looking inside containers. So how do we do it? How do we motivate it? How do we run those rule books? How do we identify whether a disk image is corrupt?
Mm. Is there a role here for automation, Haran? Where would you see that happening?
Yeah. Definitely, automation is the key, not only to advance your operations or advance your technology within your org, right? It also eliminates a lot of stress within the manual task. And if you put the organization or security ops in general in a very traditional SOC triage or org triage, like a people, process, and technology, it all ties hand in hand, right? The technology that you deploy should help the people and the process to be productive rather than being an hindrance, right? So automate your routine manual tasks in day-to-day operations, from L1 analysts to the advanced security engineers. Doing manual task is one of the biggest stress burnout, right? That includes processes like doing your activity tracking, doing manual monitoring, working on false positives, alert fatigues, right? So we call it too much of alerts, right? So the real information in the weeds completely get lost. So that's how you have to spend some time on automating your manual tasks, or bringing in machine learnings, bringing in security orchestrations, some response capabilities, and also making sure that your senior engineers or senior members of the team are spending proper percentage of time, or at least enough percentage of time, to fine tune your existing detection technologies, right? So you cannot just deploy a detection technology and use it for all of your year full of operation, right? So you have to continuously fine tune it. Based on the advanced attacks, based on the new trends, as David mentioned, we should be up to date on the TTPs, right? So you should have proper TTPs. And another important challenge I see in my close to decade experience of in security operation, right? Even a small operation to advanced, matured organization, one of the important thing that is been lacking is the maintenance of the proper asset inventories, right? When you analyze some attacks, when you analyze some TTPs or attack procedures, you couldn't quickly correlate with your asset inventories because you don't have the proper list. You don't have proper who is the owner of these assets, which team should I be contacting to make sure that it's been remediated, right? So the loss of asset inventories, no proper automations, too much of manual task is definitely biggest reason for stress and burnout from the technology point of view.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, is there anything that you've heard you want to come in on there?
Absolutely. I mean, some of the more of the stats that came out in this report yesterday, just from some of the types of things that respondents are most concerned about. So 43% are still very concerned about the impact of malware, with 38% concerned about ransomware, phishing 38%, and business email compromise 25%. Interestingly, though, in this particular survey, just 14% said they were concerned about attacks from nation states. But again, another key thing, 27% of security budget was unspent in 2022. So if and how are you with that? So if budgets aren't being spent to their full capabilities, that's another issue as well of trying to do a lot more with less that could also then be contributing to significant burnout. So yeah, the stats speak for themselves. It really is a big problem.
I was interested to know why 27% wouldn't have been sort of, I mean, that's extraordinary. I mean, Robert, I don't know if you've got any insight as to why those budgets don't get spent when they should be.
I don't know. But, I mean, I think there's 2 points to make there, which is one, if you think technology is going to sort out your problems, then you don't know security and you don't know the problems. I mean, I didn't make that up. Some far clever person made it. But I also think that it's how we process the onboarding kit and equipment and solutions, and we don't fundamentally do it in the correct way. So again, it's all about those requirements. So you end up getting halfway through a procurement piece and then realizing you haven't done what was required at the beginning, which was all of those natural processes, and you don't fundamentally understand why you're getting that piece of kit. And then there's also change in management. So you could have a change in management halfway through the year who then says, well, actually, I've used this piece of kit before in several locations before, and it just doesn't do what it says it does on the tin. And we can see that. I think it's difficult because it prevents you from getting similar budgets next year, especially when you work in government sort of systems. But I've never liked the idea of spending money on security when you don't need to. So I don't know if that's very helpful for you or not. But
it's a welcome view. One of the areas, Aaron, I want to give you time to talk about is, and when we talked about this before, and we all seem to think this is a great idea. Time spent on professional development and process change, and I know there was a couple of areas that you were talking about there. So do you just want to drill down into those areas a little bit, please? I know we were all impressed by that development.
Yeah, definitely. So here I see two topics, right? So the first thing is professional development within the security teams. I like one of the quote when I was doing my management courses. I like one of the quote that most of the management thinks that what if I invest on the assets or invest on the employees and they leave, right? But the important thing or the proper way to view it is, what if you don't train them and they stay and they remain, right? So that's completely going to backfire you. So it's better to invest on them, make sure that they have a proper career progression, they are trained on the technology that is being used, not only just the technology they have been used, right? It is very important to have cross training or cross team interactions, right? So I have seen environments where a certain level of employees doesn't have access or doesn't have interaction with the senior engagements or kind of advanced technologies that is used within the organization or used within the operations. So in that case, it demotivates them. So you should make sure that everybody is properly interacting and there's a cross team training and cross team interaction. So that's one way. And second thing, I see how process ties between people and technology is that, of course, we have process in place to make sure that we are compliant, we are audited, and nothing falls in place with the wrong hands, right? So it's properly went through the approval processes. But sometimes we should also make sure that the processes are reviewed periodically, because sometimes your old processes can be a hindrance to your productivity. For example, if there is a 0-day attack, you cannot go through a change management, right? So that's how we came up with something called like an emergency change control, right? So you all have an emergency CAP, emergency change advisory board. So in that way, you have to review your process and make sure that your process is helping you in your productivity along with the compliance rather than being an hindrance. So professional development on your employees is very much important. At the same way, reviewing your process then and there to make sure that your productivity is in place is very important as well.
Robert, would you go along with that? What you heard there?
Absolutely. You're going to miss threats. You're going to miss attackers inside the system if you're not working with a cross-functional team, because there's always deltas there. So there always has to be an overlap, so somebody understands that. I mean, I'm still doing maybe 3 or 4 courses a week on different topics. Whether it be Python, whether it be C, whether it be actually AWS or some of the other cloud sort of services. But I'm constantly refreshing myself and keeping up, and that is half the battle. And that's also one of the things that people don't sort of pay attention to when they think about how hard a SOC's working, because that is the stuff that they're doing on their own time as well. So that's stuff that they have to, the malware analysis of certain malwares or even viruses to see how they're moving through the networks. So yeah, I completely agree with Haran. Multifunction is the way to go.
Okay, Lisa, is there anything you want to add to that, or anything else into the overall mix as far as preventing cyber burnout is concerned?
I think as well, one of the big things we can do is normalize, talking about mental health and making it so that people aren't afraid, to come forward and to share those responses, how they're feeling and what's going on and so on. So having that, really open, culture and not being afraid to sort of share that you might be struggling or suffering with your mental health. And I think as well, I mean, I'm neurodivergent, I'm autistic and have ADHD, recently diagnosed with ADHD on top of autism. And I struggled for years and years, and I didn't quite understand why until I got those diagnoses. And more people that are neurodivergent are more likely to suffer from their mental health and suffer from burnout. So again, just being able to sort of normalise that and get them to to understand that it's okay to unmask, it's okay to share. I think would be key to helping combat a lot of that goes on.
It's a complicated landscape out there dealing with cyber attacks as it is, and obviously having to sort of deal with mental health and concerns about mental health as a result of that welter of attacks that keep coming is obviously something that I think probably organizations now are more aware of. The idea of things like mental health first aiders seems to me to be a very logical development. It will be interesting to see how that begins to sort of play out. So really, without the last sort of minute of our conversation here, are we optimistic of being able to at least get on top of cyber burnout? Do you think we have some green shoots, so to speak, that will help in the future? Who's most optimistic?
So I mean, unfortunately, I'm sort of always optimistic, and that sort of usually puts me in a position where I'm setting myself up for sort of failure. But I do really think, and if you speak to the majority of the industry now, there's talking about shifting left, really digging down into those processes. I think it's about understanding that we're all in this together. I know that was used during the last financial crisis, and I didn't really feel we were all together. But I'm talking about from a cybersecurity point of view, from the engineering point of view, from all of those heads of in all of those different types of verticals that we work amongst. And I think it's about protecting each other, protecting ourselves, but really digging into the processes so people know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be doing it, and when it's supposed to be done. It's a typical sort of process and function. And I think that relieves the majority of pressure because there's no in between. There's no running around, screaming, trying to sort of shouting out those alerts because nobody's listening to you. It's about running through those dilemmas that are there, and we know how to resolve the issue. That's the worst thing about it. We know that security architecture needs to be done right from the beginning, and we know that the guys at the end who are the guys who take on the brunt of those attacks, that they really need to be prepared for those assaults, and that is through processing and TPPs, some run books and playbooks, and understanding exactly what the environment looks like. As Haran said, observation. I mean, why we're still talking about observation in 2023, I mean, this was spoke about back in the 70s.
Yeah. Last couple of points, Lisa, and then Haran, do you want to finish us off? Lisa, anything else you want to add?
Absolutely. And it's right in terms of the community and people, out there, we do have a really good, strong community. And there are a lot of people out there that are able to help. During the pandemic, I actually started off a weekly group chat called InfoSec Lunch Hour on Zoom, so that we could all get together, we could all have a chat, we could share, we could talk. And that now still runs, even though we've kind of come out the other side, so to speak. But I run it every 2 weeks. And the idea is you just come along, join on the Gather platform. We'll have a chat, what's going on out there in what threats are going on, what's happening and so on. And just having that space, that forum to be able to just sort of talk and offload. A lot of people have said to me it's been really, really helpful for them. So, just encouraging that collaboration as well, I think is a key thing to do.
Great point. Yeah, thank you for that. And Haran, finishes off for the day.
Yep, totally. I agree with Robert and Lisa. I still believe if the people, process, technology triad is properly balanced, right? So that keeps the organization, especially in the security org, very much alive. You motivate your people, you have proper recognition and rewards for them, and make sure that the other two triads like process and technology helps boost the people, right? So all ties hand in hand. And as Rob clearly mentioned, if you just believe in technology, you are completely not understanding the security, right? So it's people who drives the technology, and it's the process who ties the people and technology together to make sure that it doesn't fall in the wrong hands. So it all ties hand in hand, and I totally agree how it can positively impact the security community going forward.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. It's a really good session. Really enjoyed your insights and indeed everyone's insights today. I think it's been an excellent conference. Had some fascinating presentations and some great sort of conversations on panel. So I think we're just about done for today. Just to give you a heads up on two conferences that are coming up there. The Think Data for Government on the 17th of May. We're obviously talking about Think Cybersecurity for Government today. So Think Data for Government on the 17th of May, and then Think Digital Identity for Government on the 8th of June. They're both hybrid events, and they're being held at 1 Great George Street in London, where we've held events before. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking part today. Everyone, behind the scenes in delivering, a virtual conference, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.